What happens when a country music star who rebuilt his life after addiction and prison sits across from a talk show host who believes she knows better than everyone else? What unfolds next is one of the most explosive confrontations ever captured on daytime television. Jelly Roll, the tattooed giant with a heart of gold, walked onto The View expecting a normal interview about his music and his incredible journey from the streets to stardom. Instead, he found himself face to face with Joy Behar, who seemed determined to tear him down piece by piece, live on national TV. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how one person's arrogance can push someone far past their breaking point. Before we get into this unbelievable moment, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below with your thoughts, because trust me, you're going to have plenty after you hear what happened. The studio lights were blazing hot as Jelly Roll adjusted his black button-down shirt and settled into the iconic chair. The audience buzzed with excitement, many of them longtime fans who had followed his transformation from troubled past to chart-topping success. The energy was electric. Jelly Roll, real name Jason DeFord, had been looking forward to this interview. It was a chance to talk about his new album, his work in criminal justice reform, and maybe inspire people fighting their own demons. From spending time behind bars to topping the country charts, please welcome Jelly Roll, Whoopi Goldberg announced. The audience erupted as Jelly Roll waved, his genuine smile lighting up the room. His natural charisma was undeniable, the kind you simply can't fake. "Thank you for having me," he said warmly, his deep southern drawl filling the room. "I've watched this show for years." Sarah Haynes kicked off with easy, friendly questions about his music, collaborations, and upcoming tour. Jelly Roll spoke with humility and gratitude, sharing how music saved his life, how his daughter motivated him to change, and how he hoped to use his platform to help others. "A lot of people look at someone like me and judge before they know my story," he said. "But we all have the ability to change, to grow, to become better." The audience hung on every word. This was the Jelly Roll fans loved, raw, honest, vulnerable. Alyssa Farah Griffin asked about his criminal justice reform work, and his passion was unmistakable as he explained the programs he supported to help former inmates restart their lives. "I know what it's like to feel written off," he said, "to believe you're nothing more than your worst mistake. But that's not true. People can change, they just need someone to believe in them." Then, without warning, the atmosphere shifted. Joy Behar, who had been quiet with a smug smirk, suddenly leaned forward, ready to strike. "Well, that's all very inspirational," she said, dripping with condescension. "But let's be real. You spent years breaking the law. You were involved with drugs. Now you're here talking about second chances like you're an expert on rehabilitation." The studio fell silent. You could feel the tension thicken like fog. Jelly Roll's smile faded, but he stayed composed. "My experience gives me a unique perspective," he said calmly. "I'm not claiming to be an expert, just someone sharing what I've lived. If my story helps even one person, it's worth it." But Joy wasn't done. "Isn't it convenient?" she continued, leaning back smugly. "That now that you're famous and making money, you're suddenly reformed. How do we know this isn't just good PR?" The camera caught Jelly Roll's jaw tightening. His fists clenched for a brief second before he forced them open. The other host shifted uncomfortably. "Joy," he said, his voice carrying a warning, "this isn't PR. This is my life. These aren't talking points, these are experiences that shaped me." But Joy pushed further. "It's easy to talk about redemption when you're sitting pretty with record deals and sold-out shows," she said sharply. "What about the people you hurt along the way? The communities damaged by the drug trade you were part of?" The accusation dropped like a bomb. Jelly Roll's entire demeanor changed. His breathing deepened, his posture stiffened. Fire burned in his eyes, the unmistakable sign that Joy had crossed a line she shouldn't have crossed. "You want to talk about the people I hurt?" he said, his voice rising with intensity. "Then let's talk about them. Let's talk about how every day since I got clean I've worked to make amends, to do better, to use whatever platform I have to help people." But Joy, either oblivious or uncaring, went in even harder. "But that doesn't undo the damage, does it?" she snapped. "That doesn't bring back the lives lost to overdoses, the families torn apart, lives were destroyed. Families were torn apart, communities were left shattered." And then Joy delivered the line that broke everything. "You can't just sing your way out of that responsibility." That was it. The exact moment something snapped inside Jelly Roll. The careful composure he'd been clinging to finally cracked under the weight of Joy's relentless barrage. The man who had spent years learning to control his temper, who had fought to become someone better, suddenly found himself staring at a woman who seemed determined to tear down everything he had rebuilt. The explosion was instant, volcanic. Jelly Roll shot up from his chair so fast that it rolled backward, his massive frame towering over the desk as his voice blasted across the studio with a force that made everyone jump. "Are you kidding me right now?" he roared, his southern accent thickening as raw emotion surged through him. "You think I don't carry that weight every single day? You think I don't know exactly what I've done, who I've hurt? Lady, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about." The audience gasped. Camera operators scrambled to capture every angle. Producers in the control room frantically debated whether to cut to commercial. Whoopi was frozen in shock. Sarah covered her mouth. Alyssa didn't move a muscle. But Joy. Somehow, she looked almost pleased. Like she had been waiting, hoping to push him this far. There it is, she said with a smug, poisonous smile. There's the real you, underneath all that redemption talk. Still the same angry criminal, just better dressed. The studio turned deathly quiet. The only sound was Jelly Roll's thick, heavy breathing as he stared at Joy with a mix of fury, disbelief, and something deeper, something dangerous. When he spoke again, his voice was low, too calm, too controlled, and somehow more terrifying than his shouting. You want to see the real me? He growled, leaning over the desk, hands planted firmly. The real me spent 3 years in county jail thinking about every person I hurt, every family I damaged, every life I helped destroy. He took a breath that trembled with pain. The real me has nightmares about kids who overdosed on drugs I sold. The real me goes to funerals of people I grew up with, people who didn't make it out like I did. Joy tried to jump in, but Jelly Roll cut through her attempt like a blade. No, you wanted this conversation, so we're having it. He pointed at her, not in anger but in truth. You sit up there in your ivory tower judging people like me. But what have you ever sacrificed? What have you ever overcome? You think redemption is some PR stunt because you've never needed it yourself. The camera zoomed in on Joy's face, and for the first time her expression faltered. Cracks formed in the mask of confidence she'd been wearing. Reality was sinking in. She had pushed him too far. I'm just asking the hard questions, she said weakly. Someone has to hold people accountable. Accountable. Jelly Roll barked out a humorless laugh. You think you're holding me accountable? I hold myself accountable every single day. He ticked off each point with the force of truth. I work with organizations helping addicts get clean. I visit prisons to talk to kids on the same path I was on. I donate money to families devastated by overdoses. He leaned even closer. What exactly are you doing to make the world better besides sitting here tearing people apart for ratings? Whoopi finally tried to rein things in, but Jelly Roll wasn't finished. His eyes never left Joy. You know the difference between me and you, he said, voice rising again. I admit when I'm wrong. I own my mistakes. You sit here pretending you're morally superior to everyone else, but you're just a bully with a microphone. Joy's face flushed red, and not from embarrassment, it was anger. Anger that someone had dared to call her out on live television. How dare you call me a bully, she snapped. I'm a journalist asking legitimate questions. About what? Jelly Roll cut her off again, his voice booming with righteous fury. About how someone with a past can't possibly change. About how anyone who's made mistakes should shut up and disappear. He shook his head slowly. You're not asking questions, you're pushing an agenda. An agenda built on making people feel small so you can feel big. The other hosts looked between them like spectators at a tennis match, stunned, speechless, and very aware that they were witnessing something that would go down in daytime TV history. Unsure whether to intervene or let the confrontation play out, the other hosts sat frozen. The audience was completely silent now, glued to the raw emotion and intensity unfolding before them. I've interviewed thousands of people, Joy shot back, her voice rising, cracking with defensiveness. I know how to separate genuine rehabilitation from convenient storytelling. And what I see here is someone who's learned to say the right words to make people forget what they really are. That line landed like a punch to the gut. Jelly Roll's expression shifted: hurt, anger, disbelief, and finally pity. When he spoke again, his voice was softer but somehow stronger than any shouting. What I really am, he said slowly, is a father who wants his daughter to be proud of him. What I really am is someone who knows what rock bottom looks like and climbs out of it every single day. What I really am is a human being who made terrible choices and is spending the rest of his life trying to make up for them. He let those words settle into the air like weight. But what you are, Joy, is someone who gets paid to tear people down on television. Someone who thinks being mean is the same thing as being smart. Someone who has never had to fight for anything real in your entire life. So you don't understand what real change looks like. Joy opened her mouth to fire back, but Jelly Roll lifted a hand. I'm not done. He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. You want to talk about accountability? Fine. Let's talk about your accountability. How many people have you discouraged from getting help by convincing them society will never accept their redemption? How many second chances have you destroyed with your cynicism? How many families have you kept divided by insisting people can't really change? The questions hit their mark. Joy's face tightened, her confidence faltering for the first time. The shift in the studio was unmistakable. This wasn't just a heated exchange anymore. This was Joy realizing she might have picked a fight with someone she couldn't bully into silence. You think you're so clever. Jelly Roll continued, disappointment replacing anger in his voice. You think you're exposing some fraud, but all you're doing is showing the world exactly what kind of person you are. Someone who'd rather tear others down than build anything themselves. Sarah Haynes attempted to step in to soften the tension, but both Joy and Jelly Roll ignored her completely. This had become a clash of worldviews, two opposite philosophies colliding on live television. "I stand by everything I've said," Joy insisted, but her voice trembled. "People have a right to be skeptical of convenient transformations." Jelly Roll shook his head with a sadness that cut deeper than any anger. "You know what's really tragic?" he asked gently. "You could have used this moment to talk about addiction, criminal justice reform, how we help people rebuild their lives. Instead, you chose cruelty, for no reason other than entertainment." A heavy stillness settled over the studio. Even Joy seemed briefly to consider the truth in his words, but then her defenses snapped back up, and she straightened in her chair like a soldier ready for battle. "Don't lecture me about entertainment," she snapped. "This is journalism. This is asking the tough questions. If you can't handle scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye." Jelly Roll laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Tell questions, that's what you call this." He leaned in. "Then let me ask you a few." The audience held its breath. "When was the last time you admitted you were wrong about anything? When was the last time you showed genuine compassion to someone who messed up? When was the last time you used your platform to help someone, anyone, instead of tearing them down?" Joy opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She was speechless, caught completely off guard now that she was the one being interrogated. "That's what I thought," Jelly Roll said, voice rising with conviction. "You can dish it out all day long, but the minute someone questions you, suddenly it's unfair. Suddenly you're the victim." Whoopi stepped forward again, raising her hands, trying to regain control. "Okay, I think we need to." Jelly Roll cut in firmly, turning toward her but never taking his eyes off Joy. "I'm not finished." Jelly Roll turned to Whoopi directly. "I appreciate what you're trying to do," he said, his tone controlled but firm, "but this needs to be said. I came here in good faith to talk about music, redemption, and maybe inspire some people. Instead, I walked into an ambush by someone who decided before I even sat down that I was a fraud." He turned back to Joy, his voice dropping into something quieter but far more intense. "You know what the saddest part of all this is? You had a chance to be part of something positive today. You could have asked me about the programs I support, the kids I mentor, the real work being done to help people rebuild their lives. But instead you chose to be a bully." "I am not a bully," Joy snapped back. "For what then?" Jelly Roll exploded, his composure finally shattering. "For getting clean. For turning my life around. For trying to help other people avoid the mistakes I made. What exactly am I being held accountable for here? Besides having a past that makes you uncomfortable." The studio felt electrified. Camera operators zoomed in on audience members covering their mouths, unable to believe what they were witnessing. In the control room, producers watched with wide eyes, unsure if this was a disaster or the most gripping television they had ever filmed. "You're being held accountable for profiting off a redemption narrative while real people are still suffering from the consequences of your actions." Joy fired back, confidence returning to her voice. "Profiting?" Jelly Roll's voice cracked. "You think I'm profiting from this? Every dollar I make, every opportunity I get, comes with the weight of knowing I have to earn it every single day. You think I don't know there are families out there who lost someone to the drugs I sold? You think I sleep easy at night just because I have a record deal?" He leaned forward, his face inches from Joy's, his voice raw with pain. "I give away more money than most people make in a year to organizations helping addicts. I spend my free time in prisons talking to kids who remind me of myself. I use every platform I have to tell people they can change if they're willing to do the work. My platform, my motivation, I earned all of it." Joy tried to interrupt, but he overpowered her. "But you don't want to hear any of that, do you? Because it doesn't fit your narrative. You already decided who I am, and no amount of evidence is going to change your mind." "Evidence?" Joy scoffed. "What evidence? A few charitable donations and some prison visits. Is that supposed to erase everything you did?" The question hit the room like a lightning strike. Jelly Roll straightened up slowly. When he looked at Joy again, the anger in his eyes had faded, replaced by something deeper and far more powerful. "No," he said softly. "Nothing can erase what I did. Nothing. Nothing can bring back the people who died because of choices I made," Jelly Roll said quietly. "Nothing can undo the families I helped destroy or the communities I damaged. And I live with that every single day." His voice grew stronger, not angry now, but coming from a deeper, rawer place. "But what you're really asking me," he continued, "is whether I deserve forgiveness. Whether I deserve redemption. Whether someone like me should even be allowed to move forward and try to make things right." He looked around the studio, meeting the eyes of the hosts, the audience, even the camera operators. "And my answer is this: I don't know if I deserve it. That's not for me to decide. But I do know that I'm going to spend every day of the rest of my life trying to earn it." Joy opened her mouth, but Jelly Roll lifted a hand, stopping her again. "You want to judge me? Fine. Then judge me by what I do going forward. Judge me by the lives I help save, the kids I steer away from the mistakes I made, the families I help heal. Don't judge me by who I was, judge me by who I'm becoming." The silence that followed was absolute. Even Joy looked shaken, her expression flickering with something close to shame. You came at me today thinking you'd expose some kind of fraud, he said, his voice steady. But all you've exposed is your own inability to believe people can change, your cynicism, your need to tear others down so you can feel superior. He adjusted his shirt and turned to the camera. To anyone watching this who's struggling with addiction, who thinks they're too far gone, who's been told by people like her that they'll never be more than their worst mistake, listen to me. You can change. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. But you can change. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Joy tried one final time to regain control. I think you're being overly dramatic about. Dramatic. Jelly Roll cut in sharply. You attacked my character, my motives, my redemption, my right to speak about my own experiences. You tried to tear me down on national television for no reason other than your own entertainment. And when I defend myself, then I'm dramatic. He shook his head, disgusted. You know what, Joy? You're the kind of person who makes it harder for people to get help. You're the kind of person who keeps families divided and communities broken. You are the problem, not me. With that, he turned away from her and addressed Whoopi. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry it became this, but I won't apologize for standing up for myself against someone who approached me with nothing but malice and prejudice. The camera captured Joy one last time, her expression small, shaken, like someone who finally understood she'd crossed a line she shouldn't have crossed. Wet, she called as Jelly Roll started to walk away. He didn't even look back. We're done here, he said, his voice final. I came to talk about redemption and hope, and you turned it into an attack. That's on you, not me. He walked off the set as the audience sat frozen in stunned silence. The hosts stared at each other, still trying to process what had unfolded, and Joy remained alone at the desk, looking smaller than she had at the start, like someone just taught a painful lesson about the power of words and the danger of pushing someone too far. What began as a routine interview had become something far more profound, a clash between two completely different visions of human nature, forgiveness and redemption. And by the end, it was clear to everyone watching who had truly come out on top. So what did you think of this incredible confrontation? Do people deserve second chances, or was Joy right to be skeptical? Share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more stories that will absolutely blow your mind.